Welcome to the Mindful Practice Podcast, a space for physicians navigating burnout, identity shifts, and career change without pressure or judgment. I'm your host, Dr. Bertina Hooks, a board-certified internal medicine physician, coach, and writer. Here we talk honestly about what it means to build a sustainable career and a life beyond medicine and survival.
I think one of the biggest myths physicians believe is that once they figure out what they want to do, everything else will become easy. They think, if I just knew the right career path, if I just knew whether I should do utilization management or consulting or telemedicine or entrepreneurship, then everything would fall into place. But honestly, I don't think that's the hardest part. I think the hardest part of a career pivot is the mindset required to reinvent yourself. Because career pivots are not just professional transitions. They're identity transitions. They're emotional transitions. They're psychological transitions. And many physicians are carrying around beliefs that no longer serve them. Beliefs like, I have to stay because I've invested too much. I can't change because people expect this from me. If I leave, I failed. If I'm not practicing medicine the way I imagined 20 years ago, then somehow I wasted my education. I want to challenge those beliefs today because I think one of the most important things physicians can learn is they are allowed to evolve. Welcome back to the Mindful Practice Podcast. I'm Dr. Bertina Hooks, a physician, entrepreneur, coach, and founder of the Pinnacle Business Academy. This episode is part of our Career Clarity and Pivot series, built around the Phoenix Position Pivot Framework. We've talked about recognizing that something is no longer working, finding clarity, strategically positioning yourself, exploring aligned career pathways. Today, I want to talk about the internal work that has to happen before any meaningful reinvention can occur. Because I have met brilliant physicians who knew exactly what they wanted to do, but never moved. Not because they lacked ability, because they lacked permission. Physician conditioning. Medicine conditions us in very specific ways. We are rewarded for certainty, perfection, sacrifice, endurance, delayed gratification, and following a very structured path. Most of us spent our entire young adulthood chasing the next milestone. College, medical school, residency, fellowship, first attending job, partnership, leadership. We become good at achieving, but very few of us are taught how to intentionally redesign our lives and careers. And that becomes a problem because the same traits that help us become successful physicians can make reinvention incredibly difficult. Perfectionism, fear of mistakes, fear of judgment, fear of uncertainty. Those things can keep people professionally stuck for years, unfortunately. The fear of starting over. I hear physicians say this all the time. I don't want to start over. And I understand that feeling, but I want to offer a different perspective. You are not starting over. You are starting from experience. You are bringing years of clinical judgment, leadership, communication, resilience, systems thinking, emotional intelligence, and life experience. You are not a beginner. You are an experienced professional building a new chapter. There is a huge difference, and that's the difference in mindset that you need to accept. When I first started my own pivot, I did not have that growth mindset. I ironically learned about the growth mindset through my daughter's school. They had a teacher parent informational session that talked about growth mindset. And even though I was a psychology minor, I did not know anything about a growth mindset. I never heard of it. But the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset is the belief that you are not born with just innate skills and traits and characteristics. You can acquire new skills that you can utilize to be successful. A person with a growth mindset has the ability to be successful because they don't see challenges or obstacles or setbacks as failure. They see it as opportunities to grow. And that's the most important mindset that physicians need to adopt, a growth mindset. Now let's talk about the sunk cost trap. I think one of the most dangerous psychological traps physicians fall into is the sunk cost trap. We tell ourselves, I'm already invested so much. I've sacrificed so much. I've spent so many years. I can't change now, but past investment should not force future misery. The fact that you worked hard for your degree doesn't mean you must remain in a situation that no longer aligns with your values. Your education is not a prison sentence. It's a foundation to grow and evolve into the physician that you want to be. And that's a very important concept to understand, because I think a lot of physicians believe that their medical degree only allows them to practice clinical medicine and provide diagnosis, treatment of different medical conditions. But there are also other transferable skills that I've talked about before, such as communication, leadership, critical thinking, decision making, crisis management. We do these things every day in our daily clinical practice, but we don't realize what they are. Case management, care coordination. All of these things are innate skills that we've learned and developed as physicians, and they can be used in different industries. I like to think that your medical degree is the key to your future if you position yourself correctly and understand what those transferable skills are. Next, I want to talk about comparison, which is the thief of clarity. I think social media has made career pivots harder. Physicians making millions, successful entrepreneurs, polished personal and professional brands, overnight success stories. But social media really never shows rejection, fear, uncertainty, slow growth, failed experiments, or years of invisible work. And comparison creates confusion. Instead of asking, what do I want? We start asking, what are they doing? And those are very different questions. Alignment matters more than imitation. I'll give you an example. In 2016, I started my own medical practice in Northern California. It was primarily a traditional primary care practice. And I didn't know much about how to start my own practice, so I did a lot of research. I knew, though, that I wanted to start a practice that would allow me flexibility and autonomy, During that time, I needed to have more control over my schedule as a working mother. And I also had always wanted to explore having my own practice as an employed hospitalist for years. So definitely had some setbacks, some challenges in developing and building my practice, but eventually my practice grew to 3 different locations in the Sacramento area. And I expanded into aesthetics and medical weight loss before the GLP-1s were introduced. And so if I had compared myself to others and not really taken that leap of faith, I would not have had a successful practice. And also now I have created a similar practice in Texas, which is on a much smaller scale. But I learned so much from being an entrepreneur and owning my own practice. I learned about how business entities are set up. I learned about compliance, digital marketing, social media marketing. All of those things are so important in order to have a successful business. Had I not taken that leap of faith and it wasn't aligned with my core beliefs and values, I probably wouldn't be trying to be successful again in starting my own practice. Confidence does not come first in a career pivot. I think many physicians believe they need confidence before they can take action. I don't believe that's true. I think confidence is built through action. You become confident by networking, speaking, writing, posting, learning, exploring, taking small risks, and surviving experiences you once thought you couldn't handle. You do not wait until fear disappears. It's never going to disappear. Uncertainty is never going to go away. You move despite fear. So I'll give you an example during my first launch of my first medical practice in 2016. I didn't have a lot of business acumen. I didn't know how to start a practice, but I did a lot of research. I networked with other people. I read books about how to start a practice. And gradually I developed the knowledge, skill, and expertise. One thing I like about entrepreneurship is that you are a problem solver. You have to be innovative. You have to be creative. So, for example, I wanted to build and grow and scale my practice. So I started with a very small staff. And then as a creative, innovative way to hire staff, I actually became a preceptorship site for medical assistants and administrative assistants with local colleges in the area. So I was able to bring those medical assistants on board, and it was mutually beneficial because they would get online, on-site medical training for 6 weeks to complete and get their certificate and graduate. And the same thing for administrative assistants. That was also a way for me to train them on the job, to interview them on the job, and to see if they were a good fit for my practice. So by the time they finished their preceptorship, I would have a pool of applicants that I could select from, and I would offer 1 or 2 medical or administrative assistants a job at the end of their preceptorship. And that's how I was able to screen and recruit staff for my practice. Permission to evolve. This may be the most important message I have for physicians. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to redefine success. You are not allowed to want something. You are allowed to want something different. You are allowed to create a life that fits the person you are today. The dreams you had at 25 may not be the dreams that you have at 45. And that does not mean you failed. It means you grew. You evolved. And so your career and your life needs to change with it. It's important to build a life, not just a career. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that success is more than titles. It's more than prestige. It's more than money. Success is building a life with meaningful work, meaningful relationships, flexibility, purpose, impact, and joy. Because at the end of the day, your career should support your life. Your life should not disappear inside your career. I want to leave you with a few reflection questions to consider as you're thinking about your next steps. What fear is keeping me professionally stuck? What beliefs about success am I still carrying that may no longer serve me? Am I making decisions based on fear or alignment? And what version of my future am I afraid to admit that I want? If I truly believed I was allowed to evolve, what would I do next? These are some important questions to explore, and in a clarity call or peer coaching, we can explore these questions and much more. If today's episode resonated with you, I want to invite you to continue this work through Pinnacle Business Academy. Inside our Career Clarity and Pivot Intensive, Strategic Positioning Intensives, and Career Pathway Intensives, we help physicians gain clarity, build confidence, strategically position themselves, explore aligned pathways, expand their professional options, and intentionally design the next chapter of their careers. Because reinvention is not about abandoning who you are, more fully you were meant to be. Thank you so much for joining me today for today's episode of the Mindful Practice Podcast. In our final episode of this series, we're going to bring everything together. We're going to build your physician pivot roadmap. We'll discuss practical implementation, creating momentum, and taking intentional action towards the future you want to create. Until next time, remember, you are not starting over. You are starting from experience, and you are allowed to evolve. Take care. If you're at the point where you know medicine as it stands no longer fits, but you're not sure what's next, if this episode made you think, I can't keep doing this, but I don't know my next move, that's exactly where the Career Pivot Intensive comes in. It's designed to help you get unstuck and build a clear strategic path forward. I work with a limited number of physicians inside my Career Pivot Intensive because this is deep strategic work. If you're serious about making a transition, apply through the link in the show notes.
Thank you for listening to the Mindful Practice Podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, you can find free burnout and career clarity resources at pinnaclebusinessacademy.org. And if this podcast supported you, please consider subscribing or sharing it with a colleague who might need it. Remember, you are more than your white coat. You are not broken, and you are allowed to evolve. Until next time, take care of yourself, not just your role.